Okay, good morning, everybody. Um, as you see that you have to admit people as we go on the class. I apologize, but that's what's going to happen. That's the new Zoom rule. But good morning. I hope you had a wonderful month, beautiful month of Yom Tovim, of holidays, of Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. I hope you all enjoyed and had a wonderful called the Chodesh Hashvi, the seventh month. It's also called a month of Seveya. It's supposed to satiate you, each and every one of us, so that we have a great, wonderful year. So we started off with Ashes yesterday, and as it says, Shabbos Bereshis, that the way we establish Shabbos Bereshis, that's the way it goes the entire year. And we are going into Parshas Noach this week, and it's brought down that the Baal Shem Tov said that Noach made a teva, and a teva is an ark, but a teva is also a word. Baal Shem Tov said Noach bala teva, that when there's a flood in the world, and there's a lot of trouble in the world, you have to build yourself a teva. You have to build yourself a word, meaning going into the words of Torah. Because the words of Torah are pleasant, and its ways are peace, and they bring peace to a person and tranquility to a person. So therefore, it's a good thing to start the first day, as we go into the flood, the week of the flood, to learn some Torah and to connect to something that is more spiritual, more godly, and especially to learn Chassidus, and Tanya especially, because the Tanya gives us an understanding and a way to be able to see and comprehend the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the way God wanted that each and every one of us to be able to look at the world and look at ourselves and look at God. And through that, through the Chabad, through comprehension, we come to a more understanding, a more deeper understanding in our Amunah ultimately, in our faith ultimately. We come to a more deep understanding even into our faith, the way we should have Amunah. And what is our Amunah? What is our faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? We know Noach was a tzaddik. The Torah starts off this week, Noach was a tzaddik, but a very righteous person. But the Gemara calls him a katne emunah. The Gemara says that he had a very, very narrow aspect of faith. His faith was very shallow, and he needed to work on his emunah. The Eibishter, God, needed to be with him always. That's what it says, the difference between Noach and Avraham Avinu, that the Eibishter, God, needed to constantly be there by a Noach. Avraham Avinu was in front of God. And it says, Salach Noach. Rashi says that by Noach, it says God directed him, and God was, constantly had to be there with him, because his faith was very limited. Avraham Avinu was a person who learned faith himself. Avraham Avinu was a self-made man, and he actually brought faith to himself and faith to the world, and he brought emunah. He brought emunah to the world. He made the world called out in the name of God, and that's why the Rebbe writes. The beginning of this week starts off a little bit depressing with Noach and the flood, but the end of the week ends over Avraham Avinu. It ends over Abraham, our father. And that starts off a Lebedik Evach, and it goes into Lech Lecha. We go into the history of Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father, which taught us Emunah. Abraham gave us the concept of faith. The Eibusha says, I've given through Avram Avinu, I've given every Jew a concept of Amunah. He has a Maminim, B'nei Maminim. We are called as believers, the sons of believers. So the Eibishter God gave us all a taste of faith, a DNA of faith. And we have to just uncover that Amunah, that faith that we have within each and every one of us. We're starting off this week, chapter 49 in Tanya, which the Alter Rebbe explains a couple of prayers that we daven every day and we say in our davening. I'm going to share with you the prayers. I'm going to start with the Tanya, and then I'm going to share with you the prayers that we say in our davening. And it's so important that we know the prayers, because the prayers is the avodah shebelev. The prayers are service of the heart, and it's important that we mayach shalat alalev. It's important to mind over the heart. So not only do we pray with enthusiasm and we pray with the passion, but we also comprehend that passion. And as it's brought down in Chassidus, that the passion becomes infused the intellect comes infused with passion, and they work together. And we comprehend the prayer, and the prayer makes excitement to our understanding, and it continues to go one with the other. And as it's one of the three pillars of our faith, the three pillars of the world stands on: ala Torah, v'ala avoda, on the learning of Torah, and v'ala avoda, on the aspect of tefillah. Ba'al gemilas chasadim, which Chassidus says, gemilas chasadim, the acts of kindness is mitzvahs. Every mitzvah we do is an act of kindness to the world. Every mitzvah we do is an act of kindness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And through our acts of kindness, through the three pillars of Torah, learning Torah, avodah, which is service of the heart, and through the acts of kindness, through Maisa HaMitzvahs, through our actions, we give existence to the world. And therefore, we need these three pillars. So let's go. I'm going to share with you, we're going to start the Tanya, and I'm going to share with you the page, chapter 49 in Tanya. And here it is, chapter 49. Here you have the chapter 49 in Tanya. And the Alter Rebbe, over here, the Alter Rebbe over here in Tanya says, in the continuation of the previous chapters, which the Alter Rebbe explained the aspect of tzimtzum, the concept of where God contracts himself and hides himself, so to say. God cannot hide from the world, but to us, it's seemingly in a hidden kind of a concept. And the Alter Rebbe says, why do we need tzimtzum? Why did God need to contract himself? Why couldn't we live in a world of revelation? Why couldn't we just have the concept of total revelation in the world? Why do we need to have an aspect of where God hides himself? So here the Alter Rebbe gives the reasoning, and important to us to know the reasoning, because as you're going to soon see, the Alter Rebbe says that the reasoning should give us an excitement in our service of God. And that is brought down in our prayers. So he starts off, Vihine, even though the particular aspects of the nature of obscuring and concealment of the infinite light of blessed Ein Sof, in the descent of the worlds, descending as they do even lower until this material world was created, are too numerous to count, and are many diverse kinds of tzimtzumim. So it's very difficult to go through every level and every comprehension of tzimtzum. Ki yedua l'te'umim, as it's known to those who have tasted the life of Kabbalah. The Alter Rebbe did taste the life of Kabbalah, and he said that to be able to give it to each and every one of us to understand every kind of tzimtzum that there is would be impossible. So therefore, I'm going to give you, the Alter Rebbe says, the three basic tzimtzumim, the three basic contractions. Derech klal, yet in general, there are three levels of the power of a powerful and comprehensive contractions, given rise to the three comprehensive worlds, each category consisting of myriads upon myriads of particular. These are the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. For the world of Atzilus is godliness itself. So let me show you what the Alter Rebbe is saying in something that we say in our davening every single day. And this is the Siddur. This is the prayer book. This is the morning prayer that every one of us says in our davening. And it's the Lakai Neshama, which says as follows. If you have a Siddur, you can look at it in the Siddur itself. In your Siddur, the Lakai Neshama is right away in the beginning of your when you wake up in the morning. It's on page 5, the bottom of page 5. Lakai Neshama shenasata bi tahoirahi. You should know that yesterday in the davening, in the reading of the Torah Bereshis, in the creation of the world, I'll get the Chumash a second. In the creation of the world, God created man, right? In the sixth day of creation, he created man, but he created man different than everything else in creation. God created the world as it's brought down in Ethics of Our Fathers. With 10 utterances, God created the world. But when it comes to man, it doesn't say that he created him through a statement. He said, let us make man. But then it says how God created man. He created him through an action. By Yitzer Hashem Elokim es Adam, it's in chapter 2, verse 7. God formed man Alpha min Adama, from the earth to the ground, by Yipach ba'apav nishmas chaim, and he breathed within him a breath of life. Over here, you have the first word neshama in the title, nishmas chaim. By Yehi Adam lenefesh chaim, and that's how a human being came a human being. In the Avish is said that like an animal. When God created an animal, he said, let there be a cow. And a cow came out from the ground. When the Avish created a human being, he first formed a clay, a physical clay from the earth, a clay form. And then he breathed within him a breath of life. That's the neshama. So there you have right away where you see that God created two entities. He created a physical body and he breathed within him a breath of life. Now we all know in the beginning of Tanya, remembered the beginning of chapter 2 of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe brings this pasuk. And he brings down a zoyer on this pasuk. V'ata nafachta bi. Now in this pasuk it says, "Vayipach," he breathed with him, "Nafachta bi," that it took from his breath, like a human, it's expression of a human being. He breathed out from his inner. When you take a deep breath, you exhale. You take from your inner, from your essence, and you breathe within man. And that's why the Torah over here expressed itself in that kind of a fashion, that the Eibishter took from his essence and he breathed within a human being a godly concept, nishmas chaim, a breath of life, which is, when you say chaim, when you say the breath of life, it comes from the source of life. So here you see the aspect of these two concepts where God created the human beings. You're not a human being Apitoida, according to the Torah, is not like the rest of creation. It's totally different. And it's expressed different. Totally different. Not only is different in soul, he's different in body. Because over here, God created a human being. The first human being was not that God said, let the earth give out a human being, because an animal comes from the earth, and a human being comes from the earth too. The difference is, God said, let the earth come out with a human being, a statement. God never created a human being through a statement. And in Kabbalah, that's a very deep concept, that even the body of a human being is not like the body of an animal. The physical body God took, and he formed this physical body that it would fit exactly the neshama, fit exactly our neshama. And that's why even our physical body is important to us. That's why we don't do any blemishes to our body. That's what the Torah says. You have no right to hurt your body. You have no right to do things to your body. And even after 120 years, you have no right to touch your body, because it's just not like anything else in creation. I physically did something to this body. And if just like I did it to Adam and Ishan, the first human being, so I did it to every single person. Every person, the Eibishter creates that body, because God needs the body and soul to work together. And therefore, the body needs to fit the soul. That means that the body also has to have a godly concept in it. And that's why Rashi, the Rashi in this verse is Vayetzer. It's an interesting word, Vayetzer. So Rashi says, Shtei Yitziris, Yitzira la'olam hazeh, v'yitzirat ches hamesim. The Eibishter created in the body two creations, two formations in the body itself, because it has a double yud in the vayitzer. It's like a plural word. God created within this body, that the body itself has a regular body like any other physical entity, but this body has an everlasting thing to it, because everybody's going to merit to the world to come, Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. That's why he says, Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelik La'ilam Haba. Everybody will merit to the world to come. So that means the body itself is holy. And the body itself has a concept, something that is holy within it. Eibishter formed this body. Avo behema, as he continued, behema, Rashi says, Avo behema she'ein emeres l'din, let it be tzira shnei yudin. But an animal that basically he lives for this world. He's like a tree. Maybe he's a higher level than a tree, but he's like a tree. He's like a grass. He's like created for this world, has no purpose that will be able to bring to Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the concept of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead, which will bring about even in the body elevation. And that's not the purpose of the animal or everything else in creation. But then God did even something greater, because as the verse says, "Vayipa ba'apav nishas chaim," God breathed within the person a breath of life. And we make a bracha every morning about this neshama. And that's what's in front of you. Elakai neshama shenasata bi. God, the soul that you have placed within me, tahoira he is pure. Ata barasa, you created it. Ata yotzaita, you formed it. Ata nafachta bi, and you breathed it within me. Va'ata mesharma became me, and you preserved it within me. Va'ata asid litlo mimeni, and after 120 years you'll take it away from me. Ulahachzira, but you're going to return it. La'asid lavi, with the resurrection of the dead, you're going to return to me. Kol zman shaneshama b'kirbi. As long as my soul is within me, moida ani lefanecha. I am thankful, acknowledge you. Al Hashem Elokai v'Elokei Avosai. My Lord, the Lord of my fathers. Ribono kol hamasim, Master of all works. Adon kol haneshamis, Lord of all souls. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, God, hamachzir neshamis, who restores the soul, God who makes him to lifeless bodies. Now, the end of the bracha, hamachzir neshamis, could mean every morning. That's what we say every morning. We don't say the Moida Ani when we woke up. So it happens every day with God emaces to lifeless bodies. Because when we go to sleep, our neshama leaves our body. Most of the neshama leaves the body. And now the neshama comes back to the body. So we thank the Eibishter to give us back our neshama. This is a bracha. You should all know this bracha. And we should all say this bracha every single day when we wake up in the morning. This is the bracha for our neshama. There's a bracha for everything that we do. There's a bracha for birchas hanenin, the bracha of we make a bracha over pleasures in life, food. And there's a birchas ha-mitzvahs. There's a bracha on the mitzvahs that we do. And here you have a bracha for your neshama, that the Eibishter God Baruch Hashem gave us in neshama. But it's an interesting expression we have over here in the beginning of the bracha. And the bracha says, Tahoirahi, you are holy, the soul is holy. Ata barasa, you created it. Ata yotzarta, you formed it. Va'ata nafachta bi. Va'ata mishama bikim. So you have over here 4 things. Tahoirahi, it is pure. You have created it, you have formed it, and you breathed it within me. And Chassidus says right over here, you have the journey of the soul. And it's divided into the 4 worlds. Tahoirahi, you are pure. That's the world of Atzilus. That's the world of emanation, where the soul is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's pure. It has the purity of God who created it. And then this soul needed to come down to the world of creation. Its first symptom, its first contraction, it came down to the world of creation. Ata yotzarta, then it came down to the world of formation. Another unbelievable contraction, another unbelievable download, so to say, coming down from one level to another level. Ultimately, ata nafachta bi, you breathed it within me. That's the ultimate contraction, where this godly soul comes down in an asiya, in my physical body. And it's such a contraction, it's such a vast leap, and such an unbelievable concealment. That's why it says, Va'ata meshamra b'kirbi. That's one of the wonders of creation. That the Eibishter takes, God took a soul, which in a way it's so pure, in its source, it's so pure, and it had to come down in my physical body, and it needed to stay in this physical body. It's one of the wonders of creation, that God took an infinite aspect, which my soul is also a chelik elokam and mal mamish. It's unlimited in a way, in all its capacities and it's all its levels, and it came down into a physical reality. And you know what? It's preserved within me. And that preservation that God put it within me is a wondrous concept. And we should realize it. And therefore, we say in this bracha that we acknowledge it. We just don't take it as for granted. We acknowledge it. We bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We thank God that God took this concept, this godly aspect, and put it within me, and it became part of me. But over here, the Alter Rebbe says you have right in front of you the basic Three, because Tahiri is Atzilus, is not a contraction by God. It's a godly concept. You have the three levels in front of you: the world of Atzilus, Bria, the world of creation, the world of formation, and the world of action. Ata nafachta bi, you breathe into it. And there is the three basic tzimtzumim, the three basic concepts of concealment that brings about the capability for this neshama to be able to come down in a physical reality. That is the basics, the Alter Rebbe says. So that is what he said: Bria, Yitzira, Asir. There you have it: the world of creation, the world of formation, and the world of action. So in order to create the world of Bria, which consists of a higher souls and angels, who the service to God is in the sphere of intellect and a faculty of Chabad, which are clothed in them, meaning the godness is revealed to them in an intellectual manner. So the three intellectual factors, Chachma, Bina, and Das, and that's the world of Bria. So the world of Bria is more a world of intellect. And they, the souls and the angels, apprehend them and receive the influence from them, from Chabad, which illuminates them. So that's the first level. The first level is Olam Habriya. But over there, it's more intellectual. And then it comes to the Olam HaYetzira, which is the more of a emotional world. So really, if you want to divide the three pillars of the world of Bria is the world of Torah, the world of intellect. The world of Yetzirah is the world of emotion, the world of formation, the world of emotions. The Olam HaAvodah, the world of service. And then you come to the third pillar, Gemilas Chasadim, Maisim Tovim, Olam HaAsiyah, the world of action. Truth is, that is also the three basic principles of the neshama that we all have, because the neshama is comprised of 5 levels to the soul, but the neshama has the first basic 3 levels, which is called it's called naran, nefesh, ruach, neshama. The nefesh is the asiyah of the neshama, the action of the soul. Nafachtabi, the way the neshama affects the physical world. Then there's the emotion of the neshama, which is Yetzirah, which is the ruach of the neshama. And then there's the Chabad of the neshama, which is the neshama. That's why in the verse it says, "Vayipar pa'apa nishmas chaim." The neshama, the chaim of the neshama is the intellect of the neshama. The intellect of the neshama. That's that's the neshama. That's what we call neshama. When you say a person has a neshama, when then ultimately comes down to ruach, to the emotions of the neshama, nefesh, neshama, ruach, and then it comes down to the nefesh, to the physical side of the neshama, the way the neshama affects the physical world. And that's important to every human being, those 3 basic levels that we have: an intellectual part of the neshama, we comprehend godliness, we feel godliness, that's the avodah of prayer, and we ultimately bring godliness to the world. You should know that is what we start today, this week, Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu is Gemilas Chasadim. Avram Avinu made the world call out in godliness. That's why Avram Avinu is important to us. Yitzhak is Avodah, and Yaakov is Torah. Yitzhak is service of the heart, and Yaakov Avinu is Torah, is the emes, is the Torah, is the neshama of which we all have. That's why we call Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob our fathers, because these three, he just said in davening, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, because all these three are our fathers. Why? Because they are our neshama. Avram, or go the other way, Yaakov is the neshama, is the intellect of the neshama. Yitzchak is the emotions of the neshama. And Avram Avinu is the actions of the neshama. And that's why our Ma'aser Vayikra, the most important thing is Magen Avram. We end off the blessing, you're the shield of Abraham. Because the action is what's important. That we don't only have intellectual relationship with our neshama, we don't only have an emotional relationship with our neshama, we also have a physical relationship with our neshama. Our neshama comes down, Magen Avram, because that's our shield. The shield of Abraham, because that is what's important ultimately. That our neshama comes down in a ma'aser, in an aspect of action. And that's Avram. That's the real thing. That's when our neshama completes its avodah, when it does physical realities. That we live, not only do physical because we're human beings, or that's what we're created to do, physical realities, but we live the physical realities in the purpose of the soul. It's not only for the body, but it's also for the purpose of the neshama. It's also a godly purpose. And that's the way it comes into a tzimtzum. We're mitzamtzim our nefesh, our godly soul. We're mitzam, we try to comprehend it. That's one level of contraction. We try to feel it with our emotions. That's another level of contraction. And we ultimately try to do a mitzvah with our neshama, with our soul, with our godly soul. And my friends, that's the bracha. That's a simple bracha that we say every day every morning. And that's how we acknowledge the soul. And the truth is, that's the way we continue to say the other brachas of the morning. Because when we establish that the Eibishter created a soul and he put it within the body, that establishes a principle to me and to all of us, hopefully, that even though we're going to go to our regular day to work, we're going to go out to work, and we're going to do all our bodily functions, but we cannot forget that this body has an neshama. This body has a soul within it. And this is the way God created it on the sixth day of creation. That God created this body that it has a neshama, that it has a soul. It's not just like an animal. It's a body that has a godly purpose. And it's not just like an animal, because an animal can never elevate itself to a godly purpose, but actually the body can elevate itself to a godly purpose. And that's the journey of my day. And that's the purpose of my day. So everything I do should also not only be for a physical purpose, but also for a godly purpose, because that's the way it was created. I'm not doing something new. I'm doing something that it was created for. So even though I'm diminishing the godliness, so to say, to be able to bring it down to a godly purpose, but that's the whole reason why there's a tzimtzum, to be able to come down in the most physical, mundane concepts in the world, and to be able to do it for the sake of a godly reason. There are many examples that are given to this, but when we get married, we say a Maimah L'Chadoidi. There the Rebbe gives the famous example of a Ava, of a father and a child, a parent and a child. And that if the parent wants a relationship with the child, sometimes the parent has to lower himself, has to bend down to the child, has to maybe even sit down on the floor with the child to play with the child. The parent who might be a great philosopher, a great giant in wisdom, but if he wants to have a relationship with this child, with his child, he might have to lower himself. He might have to get down on the floor with the child. He might have to play with the child. He's not going to be able to talk to the child with his great philosophy. He's going to have to lower himself to have a relationship with the child. The Eibishter calls us his children. He calls us his children. We are his creation. And if God wanted a relationship with us, then God needed to do that. To have a relationship, God that is infinite wanted this relationship. Therefore, he needed to contract himself to be able to have a childish relationship with each and every one of us, so that he would be able to have this relationship, and not only for the sake of God's relationship, but that we would be able to have a relationship with him, so that we, as a child, that through a relationship with his parents, matures. It's a great, for a child to have a relationship with his parents, that develops the child, and that creates the child to be able to become and to grow and mature itself from level to level. So the pre-1A teacher is one level to the child, and then he goes to first grade, and then it goes to second grade, and to third grade, and to fourth grade, and to fifth grade. The beauty of education, any education, and for surely Torah education, is that the same concept of this education was given to a first grader, to a second grader, to a third grader. It never changed. The truth didn't change. The way it was packaged changed, because it was packaged to the child. And then it went from the child, from the kindergarten to first grade, to second grade, to third grade, past elementary to high school, to rabbinical college. The message never changed. The philosophy was the exact same, the way he was taught in first grade to the way it's ultimately taught in rabbinical college. Why? Because it was the emes doesn't change. The packaging, to be able for the child to understand the emes, to be able to the child to comprehend this concept of truth, it needed to be brought down to him. It needed to be contracted. It needed to be hidden maybe, and maybe put into a picture for the child to be able to understand the emes. But ultimately, through educating that child in that kind of a fashion, you brought the child up. You educated the child from level to ultimately realize that there is greater, deeper, and deeper as it goes. And that's the beauty of education. We all know that. You cannot put a kindergarten, a first grader in a 12th grade. You can't do that. You need to start off and educate the child in a lower level, so that the child knows, like the father needs to bend down. Like the example that's given of the teacher that needs to make the student feel comfortable to be able to teach him understanding. That's what the Gemara says. Rabbah would always make a joke. He would start off his class with a joke, with a concept of laughter, so his students would be able to be comfortable with him. And once the students were comfortable, they felt the teacher had a human side to him. That is, the teacher was not only intellectual, but the teacher was also human. He can have some humor, and he can laugh with them, and he can make them feel comfortable. Then the teacher had the capability to give his students a deeper understanding. So first, the teacher had to lower himself to the student to make the student feel that the teacher and the student were on the same level. And then the teacher can teach the student great things. the truth is, my friends, that's the bracha that we just said. We thank God that God took the neshama and brought him down to a lower level so that we could have some kind of a human relationship with this neshama. If the neshama was totally so unbelievably spiritual and it was tahira in its level of purity, it would be far beyond us. And we would never have this, be able to have a relationship with this neshama. So we say we thank God that God took the level of the neshama where it's pure and it never lost its purity. And it, even as the soul came down from level to level and it ultimately was breathed within me, which is a physical entity, the soul never lost its purity. But suddenly the soul became a little bit human. The soul was given a name nefesh, which is the lowest level of the soul, which is which is corresponds like to the way the nefesh is like becomes like a body. So suddenly the soul became a body form. The truth is, if you learn Chassidus, the nefesh never leaves the body. That's why the nefesh, that's why we go even to a person that has passed away, because there's a part of the nefesh that always stays with the guf. That's why I mentioned that the Gemara says that the luz, that there's a part of the body that never ever goes away. That means if the part of the body is always connected, always has chayim. See, if the body would disintegrate, then everything would disappear. But there's always a chayim to the nefesh, to the body. And that's the nefesh. The nefesh always stays with the body. The question is, how much of the nefesh stays with the body? By a tzaddik, his nefesh never leaves his body, and that's why a tzaddik stays whole. Even his physical body stays whole. But our nefesh, even our nefesh was very little with our body, and maybe even only a luz, one part of the body stays whole. And because this nefesh is always connected to it. And that's why it says the Eibishter will resurrect the body from that nefesh, because it never left the body, never ever left the body, and never will leave the body. We have to try to connect that nefesh to the body as much as possible. And the more we do godly things with our body, the more the nefesh connects itself to the guf. Whether we comprehend it or not, but that's the way it is. And that's the bracha. That's the blessing that we say in our davening every single day. So that's a beautiful concept that we should understand. You know, a lot of times we daven, we pray, we say brachas, we don't really comprehend what they mean. I hope I gave you some comprehension in a bracha that you say every day in the morning. And when you say it tomorrow morning, maybe you'll have a little bit of a deeper understanding in this bracha, that when you say it, you'll comprehend the bracha and it'll have more of a deeper meaning. But let's continue in the Tanya, and let's continue in the teachings of the Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe said, the world of Bria is the beginning of the Tzimtzum, and he has Tzimtzum. It's very powerful. The Chayim Bria Yitzira, and so from Bria to Yitzira, from the world of creation to the world of formation, for a minute portion of light, which is clothed itself in the world of Bria, is still in the category of infinite in the relationship with the world of Yitzira. So the light of Bria has to undergo a powerful contraction before it's able to descend to the world of Yitzira. And it's unable to clothe itself in the latter except through a contraction and obstruction, obscuration, so that it Yitzira, so from Yitzira to Asiya. So now it has to go through a third lowering itself from Yitzira to the world of Asiya. As it's elaborated and explained, these three contractions given elsewhere in order to make them more accessible to our poor intellect. As I said many times, that when the Alter Rebbe said the world of Atzilus, he could not say the word Atzilus. He would get stuck in the first three letters, Atzi. It's a Yom Yom of the Rebbe. He says that when the Alter Rebbe said the word of Atzilus, he couldn't say it. Because Pashas, probably when the Alter Rebbe said the word of Atzilus, he saw it. And when he saw it, he could not say it. Because it was such a powerful light. We don't see these lights. It's very hard for us to see these lights. So therefore, we don't have that comprehension. But the Alter Rebbe says, for the persons, let's continue. The purpose of all these contractions. What am I telling you? Something that's hard for you to comprehend, because the point is as follows. This is the real reason for the purpose of all the contractions is the creation of the material body and the subjugation by man of the Sitra Achra to bring about the preeminence of the lights supplanting darkness. That's the whole purpose. The purpose is that ultimately we all know that we are a physical entity, and that doesn't comprehend this light, doesn't see this light. Why? Because we're so in darkness. Why would God put us in such a dark kind of a reality? And the answer is that we would bring light into the world. We would bring light into the world. And the truth is, the more dark that we are, the more it's easier to bring light into the world. This is one of the principles, very important concept. And we shouldn't, because most of us might think, oh, Louis, it's so dark. We might be in total darkness. But actually, the more darker it is, the more easier it's to bring light into it. Bavitch Rebbe once told Prime Minister Netanyahu, when he came to visit him to become the ambassador of Israel to the United Nations, he told him, actually it was a Simchas Torah, he told him, you're going to a house of darkness. You're going to a very dark place. It's such a dark place. It's a place of total darkness. And you're going to bring in a little candle. That's your obligation. How can you, a country of Israel, come to such a dark place? How can you fit in such a dark place? But therefore, you should realize that in such a dark place, if you light one little candle, that one little candle has the power to chase away a lot of darkness. You see it physically. You take a dark room and you bring in a candle, boom, the room lights up. The more darker the room, the more powerful this candle is. So the Rebbe said, let's bring in a little candle. That's your avodah. Your avodah is to bring in a little candle. He said this publicly, actually in the United Nations. He said, that's what the Lubavitch Rebbe told me, that I need to bring in a little candle. And I need to bring in a little light, and this light will push away a lot of darkness. So that is really our avodah. Our avodah is, our service is to bring in a little light. And the Alter Rebbe says, this is the purpose of the progressive descent of the world. That's the whole purpose. The Eibishter made this whole darkness so that each and every one of us would have an avodah. If there would be any light in the world, then many of us wouldn't have a purpose. Because there is darkness in the world, that's why each and every one of us, every single one of us, has a purpose in the world. The Eibishter knew how dark this world needs to get, so that each and every one of us, every human being, would have a purpose in the world. That's the way the Eibishter created the world. God wanted that every human being, no human being would be created without a purpose, without a reason. And it doesn't make a difference where you were born in. Actually, where you were born in is where God wanted you to be born in. So if a person would say, I was born in the ultimate of darkness, I'm living in Boca, the ultimate of darkness. That's where God wanted you. And that's exactly where God needed you. Because God wants you and me to bring in a little bit of light in that darkness. And that was the whole reason. That's the Hashgacha Pratis. That's divine providence where you were supposed to be. This is a very important teaching in Chassidus in general, that a person might think he's in the darkest part of his life, the most challenging part of his life, and seemingly he's at the end of the rung of things. He's at the bottom of the pit. He's on the ground. That's where God wanted him to be, or her to be. And God says, you know what? It's all you need to do is bring in a little bit of light. And that's going to come to the next important prayer that we are going to learn. I want to start it, and we'll go more deeper into it next week. But I want to start the next part of the Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe teaches us another very powerful two prayers that we say in our davening. And these two prayers are the Chachamim, the sages, put them in the blessings before the Shema. Now we know that everything that the Chachamim establish in the prayer is very concise, and not only concise but very important. So we know that we are taught that really the whole prayer brings us to the Shema, the prayer of Shema. The prayer of Shema is the prayer that we all know it's a mitzvah in the Torah to say the Shema. Out of the whole prayer, we know that in the mitzvah of Shema, the prayer of Shema is a mitzvah. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And especially the next paragraph, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha b'chol meidach. I love the Eibishter with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my might. That is really the center point of prayer. That really is the whole foundation of prayer. The Gemara says, how do we know? The Talmud says, how do we know we need to pray? Because it says, B'chol levavcha, with all my heart. And levavcha ain't tefillah ela b'lev. When it says you pray, I love God with all my heart, that is prayer. Levavcha, your heart is prayer. So this is the whole point. The whole Psukkah de Zimra, all the blessings, the whole beginning of prayers, all that we reach up to the Shema, where we say to the Eibishter, we say to God, V'ahavta, I love you. B'chol levavcha, with all my heart. B'chol nafshecha, with all my soul. B'chol meidecha, with all my might. I love you. Do we really love him? Do we really love him? B'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol meidecha. Do we? How do we reach up to this level? That we say a statement. Is it just a statement? Or this is what we're professing to God. I love him b'chol levavcha, with all my heart, b'chol nafshecha, with all my soul, b'chol meidecha, all my might, everything I have. You know, it says in the simple meaning, the Rashi says, I love it. When I say this statement, I'm saying that nothing is important to me. I have a love of God that nothing is important to me. I'm totally focused on God. I have total focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know, they say, there's such a thing in America, date night. When you have a date with your wife, your husband, and you go out on a date. So they say statistic-wise, everybody wants to, when they go to a restaurant, they want to sit next to the window. Why? Because when you go to date, it's very hard to be focused on your wife or your husband. You need things to keep you busy. I think there's a statistic, you can Google it. How many distractions you have? It's a big number. That when you go to a date, when you go to go out with your loved one, that you are totally focused on each other. There's nothing else. No, there's your phone. There's this. There's that. There's other things. There's things that moves you away from the real focus that you really need to be focused on, and that is the person you're with. We get lost in other things. When we come to the Eibush of davening, we say to God, I love you. I love you with everything. There's nothing else. I am totally focused on you. There's nothing else that matters. So how do we do that? Again, therefore the Chazal, the sages, put Birchas Krishma. The sages put 2 pages before the Shema to get us focused on that one verse. I love God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my might, with everything that I have. I'm totally focused on God, and therefore I make Birchas Krishma. Now, I'm going to show you the Birchas Krishma, the blessings of the Shema. If you have a siddur, you can take it out. And we say this every day, and it's interesting that these are called the blessings of the Shema. Because you should know that there are those that say that really they have nothing to do with the Shema. As the Alter Rebbe himself says, what does that have to do with the Shema? These blessings seemingly have nothing to do with the Shema, seemingly. And there are those that say these are blessings that the rabbis instituted and they put it before Shema. Rashba says that. But really, they're just blessings of creation, but the upper worlds. But they're not doing the Shema. The Alter Rebbe is not happy with that interpretation. And the Alter Rebbe says, no, there must be some connection to the brachas, these blessings, with the Shema. So I want to learn with you together. I just want to read, we'll learn it together. We're going to read it together. We're not going to do it this week, but let's learn together. Let's read together the Bracha Shema, the blessings of the Shema. You're going to see a lot of these things are interconnected to what we're speaking about. But this is the first bracha. The first bracha of the Shema starts in your siddur. It starts on page 39. The first blessing starts on 39. It goes till the end of 41. It ends off Yotzer Hamiyodis. So it's a very long blessing. But this is the first blessing. This is how it starts. It's after Yishtabach. We start off with the Birchas Shema, the blessings of Shema. And actually, let's look at the page, and you see it in front of you, but it says blessings of Shema. So it starts off on page 39, the blessings for the Shema. And this is how the blessing starts. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam, yotzer or, who forms light, uvoideh choshech, creates darkness, oiseh shalom, he makes peace, uvoideh es hakoil, and he creates all things. I mean, that's beautiful. You have right in front of you those three levels: Yotzer, Verde, Oisei, Yitzira, Bria, Asiya. Uveri Sakal. There's actually this is a statement that's brought down in. I don't have it in front of right now. It's a statement in the prophets, and actually there's another word over here, Uveri Ra, who created evil, but we don't say that for different reasons. But over here you have Yotzer Oir Uveri Choshech. I just wanted to show you those two words. Yotzer Oir Uveri Choshech. The Eibishter formed light and he created darkness. You have right over there the concept of the first day of creation, the aspect of the creation of light, and the creation of darkness. Oisa Shalom, the Eibishter made peace between these two entities, the creation of light and the formation, the creation of darkness and the formation of light. And he continues. Let's continue. I want to continue. And he continues. The blessing continues. Hameir la'oretz ba'adara maleh barachman, who mercifully shines light to the earth, and those who dwell upon it. In his goodness, he renews the work of creation every day continuously. I mean, this is beautiful. Marab Masech Hashem, how mindful are your works, O God. Kulam b'chachma sisa, you have made them all with wisdom. Mali aretz kiyanecha, your earth is filled with your possessions. You are the King who alone is exalted from the beginning of time, who praised and glorifies and upraised from the beginning of creation. God of the universe, in your abundant mercies, you have mercy upon us, for you are the master of our strength, rock of our refuge, shield of our salvation, refuge for us. The blessed God, great in understanding, appeared and throughout and brought about the rays of the sun. The generous one created glory in his name. He placed the luminaries around his powers. Chieftains of his hosts are holy beings who exalted the omnipotent, continuously relating to the glory of God in his holiness. This is talking about the angels. Blessed are you, God and Lord, in the heavens above and on the earth below, for all your praises, handiwork, and with the shining luminaries that you have formed, may glorify you forever. It's not finished. And then he continues. Oh, we said this? And he says, we're going to continue. Be blessed, eternal rock. I said this. King who created the angel, mastering angels, and who ministering angels all stand in the lofty heights of the universe, and loudly proclaim in awe together the words of the living God, the eternal King. All of them are beloved. This is talking about the angels. All are pure. All are mighty. All are holy. All carry out the will of the Creator, dread and awe. And all of them, upon their mouths in the holiness and purity, with song and music. They bless and praise and glorify and exalt. Sanctify, ascribe the kingship to the name of the Almighty, the great, the powerful, awesome King, who is holy. This is talking about the angels, the prayer of the angels. They all accept upon themselves the yoke of kingdom of heaven, one from another. And they all lovingly grant permission to each other to sanctify the maker with gracious spirit, with refined speech, and with sacred melody. Together, they all exclaim with dread and declare in awe. We're not finished. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. This is a prayer of the angels. Holy, holy, holy is God of hosts. The entire earth is filled with his glory. And the Iphanim and the holy Chayas raise up towards the Seraphim. These are different levels of angels with great clamor, and in a manner offer praise and declare, blessed is the glory of God from its place. Baruch Vedash. This is the Baruch Shem. This is the prayer of the angel. Baruch Shem that we say quietly. We're coming to the end of the blessing. We're still in the first blessing. They offer sweet melodies to the blessed God, to the Almighty who living and abiding. They recite the songs and pronounce the praises. Now, how do we know all this? These are the prayers of the angels. This is actually what Moshe Rabbeinu came down with, the prayers of the angels. We would never know this if not Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven and knew exactly what the angels were doing. For he alone is exalted and holy, perform mightily deeds, bring about new development, master of wars. He sows the righteous, causes deliverance to spout forth, and creates and cures. He is awesome in his praise, the master of wonders, who in the goodness renews every day continuously the work of creation. And it is said, give thanks to one who makes the great luminaries with kindness, for his kindness is everlasting. And this is how we end the first blessing. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, God, creator of luminaries. This is what we say every day in the morning of our davening. I've been saying it for 58 years, every single day. I know what I'm saying. I know the Hebrew, but these are very, very deep concepts in the prayers of the angels, in the way God, how the angels above understand the way God created the world and everything in the world, the upper worlds. This is the first blessing of the Shema. We're going to go next week in Meish Hashem. We're going to read the second blessing of the Shema, which is truly another unbelievable bracha. And we're going to learn the Tanya, the way the Alter Rebbe says why we make these two blessings before the Shema. Why is the first blessing all about the angels and the way the upper worlds, the heavenly worlds, which none of us can see, we know these blessings because that is the way God created the world, and that's the way the angels perceive godliness. And I'm going to answer that question, Yocheved, why? What's the difference between creating darkness and forming light? And I can give you a basic answer, because light is from the Eibishter, it's just formed. Light is, as I've said many times, one of the basic principles of light is that it comes from its luminary. It just is formed differently. Choshech, the Eibishter needs to create. Because choshech, seemingly darkness, is only there because of lack of light. But no, the darkness that we're talking about is not something that is thus there from a lack of light. It's actually something that God created darkness. It has its own seemingly its own identity. It has its own reality. The truth is, in the first day of creation, you have it. Vayi erev, vayi voiker. It was evening, it was day. It was choshech, darkness. There was no sun. The light of the first day and the darkness of the first day was two different entities, spiritual entities. The difference was the Eibush said, "Vayi let there be light," because it's from Him. Light is from Him. Light is thus an extension of Him, and therefore the Eibush just formed it. He said, "I'm going to form myself. I'm going to yotzer." The Eibush created darkness. He actually made a creation, a concept of darkness. Chassidus says that this darkness is might be even higher than light. The true essence of darkness is something that the Eibush created so he had within him something that was aspect of choshech. It's hard for us to comprehend what that means, because ein ra yoylem amayla. There's no negative ra that comes from above. So there's two concepts in choshech. There's two aspects in darkness. There's a darkness that we see as darkness, and then there's a higher level of darkness. Toyu, the world of Toyu. That's why in the beginning of creation, before Oyer actually, is the choshech apnei time. So choshech actually in the pasuk is there before Oyer. Right in the pasuk, it says, "V'ruach halakim arachefes apnei hamayim," and the Spirit of God hovered above the sea. The choshech apnei time, darkness, was on the abyss. So darkness was there before Oyer, and then it said "Vayi Oyer." So there is a concept of darkness. That's what's called the black hole, right? That it's so light that it cannot be expressed as light, right? It's so light that it's a condensing light. It's so light that it cannot be even expressed as light. I'm not a physicist, but if you were a scientist, you would be able to explain this better. How sometimes darkness is really light, but it's just not capable to be expressed as light. It's choshech. Chassidus says, we learned in Tanya, Alter Rebbe says that is choshech, that really ain't nothing evil comes from above, and therefore that we see as choshech is something that's so deep that it comes out in choshech. It comes out in a dark way, but it's really not dark. It's really a higher level of oir. It's a higher level of light. Because you gotta take the first. You gotta understand the first pasuk, and that's the first pasuk itself. So there's that's what we say. Life is an expression of God. The Eibush to express himself is light. The Eibush to express himself is good. Then there has to be a deeper expression of God, and that we can't even see. That's Toyu. That's why Toyu is higher than Tikkun. Toyu is higher than Tikkun. The negative is higher than the positive, in a way, because in the negative is the real essence of the positive. In the choshech is the real purpose of the oir. Because the oir was there to work on the choshech, to reveal the true essence of the choshech, which is really oir, but it's so deep, this oir, that it's very difficult for us to explain. That's why actually it's interesting, yotzer oir uvoda choshech. So it sounds like yotzer oir, Yitzira, is lower than Bria. That's what you learned us in Tanya. I believe in the Tanya it says Bria is the beginning of creation. It's called creation, but it's Chabad, it's Chachma. It's creation in comparison to Atzilus, but it's higher than Yitzira. But ultimately, Oir is revealed in Yitzira more than in Bria. That's why in the Bracha maybe Yitzira comes before Bria. But in Lamaila, Bria comes higher than Yitzira. But the question, shouldn't formation come after creation? It should be higher than creation. But Bria comes first in the levels of creation. Bria comes first because that's the first ray of wisdom, and then comes formation. But really, formation is higher. What is greater? That was a struggle of the Alter Rebbe and the Talmidei HaMagid. What was greater? Wisdom or emotions? Talmidei HaMagid said emotions are are greater. That's why they went with Chagas. They said the emotions are Yitzira is more greater because that's where it all is, the emotions. The Alter Rebbe says, I'm not running away from emotions. I agree with you, emotions, Avodah B'Lev is important, but Chabad, it needs to be directed by Chabad.
Right.
It needs to be directed by Chabad. Bria, it needs to be directed by wisdom. If it's not directed by wisdom, it can get out of hand. The fire can burn everything. The emotions can burn everything. If it's directed with Chabad, if there's some Chabad in it, it will never be. It will be, so you got to put some Chabad into it. And that's what the Alter Rebbe wanted. He needed Chabad. He needed Bria, Chochmah. Even though ultimately, Alter Rebbe agreed, ultimately, Avodah Shebelev is important. Might be the whole purpose of Chochmah, might be Avodah Shebelev. And ultimately, Ma'aseh Mitzvah is all connected. That's what the Gemara had a question. What is greater? Maisa or limud? It's the same argument, different ways. What's more important? Maisa, you say Maisa or Iker, the most important thing is action. So Talmud Torah Keneged Kulin, the most important thing is learning. So the Gemara asks the question, what's more important? You can't have your cake and eat it. Either this or that. So the Gemara says learning is the most important thing. Why? Because learning brings to action. So ultimately, what's more important? Action. But you cannot really have good action if you don't have learning.
Right.
So you're right, action is more important. But the action won't be the way it's supposed to be if you don't learn.
Right.
So therefore, you cannot have action. You can't have true action without learning. So that's why the Alter Rebbe said Chabad is the most Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. The most important thing is Chabad, to be able to learn. But Chas Shalom, not to forget the Avodah Shebelev. That's the Alter Rebbe said. I had a choice to go to Vilna or to Mizitch. And why did I go to Mizitch? Because I wanted to learn how to daven. I wanted to learn how to daven. That's what I learned in Mizitch, how to daven. So, that the Mizitch Maggid taught him that how to do Avodah Shebelev, how to do the Avodah, how to take his mayach, how to use his intellect and do his Avodah Shebelev, his service of the heart. So this is the struggle that continues still today. And it's part of our avodah to the three pillars, and how the Alter Rebbe wanted that that if we would have more intellect, we would be able to do the avodah shebetfilah, the aspect of service, and to do the ma'aseh in its correct way. We would have it united. While some people just do the lev and they lose them, they never live with the mind. They think the mind is not important. It's very limited. And they do the Avodah Shebelev. The Alter Rebbe wanted you should have three things. You should have all of it. You should have intellect and emotional and and ultimately action.
Beautiful.
I read through the davening quickly because the truth is, you need. I don't know if I'm qualified to really give you a class in tefillah. My wife would be better for this, but you really, the tefillah is very powerful. I mean, just read through in English. I mean, it's a very powerful prayer, and you'll learn. We'll read the next week's in the Ava Salem. It's even more powerful. It's such a powerful prayer. But the Alter Rebbe is going to try to connect these prayers to be able. If we understand the prayer more, then you have Ava greater. Then you have real Ava, because it might be you're not saying a statement. I love the Eibush with all my heart, with all my soul. It's a nice statement. It's a good one-liner. I love you. I love you. We always say I love you. What is really love? But am I ready to give up everything? Am I really ready to give up everything to God, for God? Am I ready to do that? When I say I love you to somebody else, am I ready to give up everything for that person? Am I really ready to give up? Or is there strings attached? I'm not ready to give up everything. You know, there was a famous advertisement, the Crown Royal. You know, I'm ready to give up everything but my Crown Royal. I'll give my wife everything, but not my Crown Royal. You know, they say the famous joke. They once came to the Russian, they once came to the farmer in Russia. They said, "You got to give up your land." He said, "Yeah, gesundheit, I give my land to the motherland." "Oh, you got to give up your all your possessions. I give it up." "Oh, your 3 chickens there. You got to give up the 3 chickens." No. I'm not giving it the chickens. So what do you mean? He says, "Oh yeah, sure. I give my land. I don't have any land. I don't have any possession. But all I have is 3 chickens. I'm not giving up my 3 chickens. 3 chickens, I'm not giving up." So we're ready to give up everything, but not the 3 chickens. That not. So what does that mean, really? What does it mean? I love the Eibishter. I'm ready to give up everything. Everything. And that's the brachas that Alter Rebbe says. If you understand the brachas, how the Eibishter gives up everything for you. The Eibishter gave up everything. All these angels, all these prayers, all this, he gave up. He doesn't care about anything but your little thing. If you comprehend the 2 brachas, then you're ready to give up. If you understand, like any relationship, if I have a relationship that I'm willing to give everything for my loved one, they'll be willing to give up everything for me. Because it's a give and take relationship. The Eibush knows that we're human beings. So the Eibush says, I'm giving, look at this, I have the upper world. I got everything. Look at this. The luminaries, the upper worlds, I got everything. And I'm willing to give up everything for you. That's a second blessing. I'm willing to give up everything that you should do. You should love me. I am willing to give up everything. It's all irrelevant to me. This whole upper world, all these angels, billions, all their prayers and everything is not worth it for me, but your one good deed. Is that amazing? I'm willing to give up everything in the world for your one good deed. If you understand that, it should be easy for you to give up everything too. But if you think that you're irrelevant, that's why you're not willing. Your relevance is the 3 chickens. Then you're not willing to give up the 3 chickens. But if you realize that how relevant you are to me, how each and every one of you is so relevant to me, then you understand. Then you'll be relevant. Then you'll understand that your relevance to me would be the same thing. So that's why the Chachamim made these 2 brachas. So that's why if we read these 2 brachas, these 2 blessings, we read it over and over and over and over again, and we see how the Eibishter has everything, and how still in all it's relevant. I'm so relevant to him. Zalman Buket is so relevant to him. That's like a father and a son. If a son realized the greatness of his father, and still he wants a relationship with him, right? His father's the king, his father's the president, his father's the greatest rabbi, and he loves him, right? He's a busy guy, but he loves him. Then you have a relationship with your son. to say the joke, the son who's trying to have a relationship with his father, and his father's a big lawyer, and one day he calls his father, he says, "Dad, how much you take an hour? How much do you take for an hour?" He says, "What do you mean? What's the difference?" He said, "Dad, how much you take? How much it cost an hour for your time?" He says, "Listen, I'm a big lawyer. It's $350 an hour, $500 an hour." He says, "You know what? I want to buy an hour. I'm going to pay you $500. Give me an hour." Then the father realizes that, what's an hour? He thinks, "I have no time for my son. I'm making $500 an hour." How much is the value of the relationship with your son? The Abish says, that is $1 million, but you are more important. My relationship with you is more important than the billions and billions of worlds and the heavens and everything. It's irrelevant to me. You are more important. Can you imagine the Abish says that to you? You are more important than all this. That's the bracha. That's what the Rebbe is going to say. That's what the Alter Rebbe is going to say. That's the bracha. And you'll understand it by the second bracha even more. You'll understand it by the second blessing for the Shema. We'll understand it even more. I went over my time. God bless you all. We'll continue next week. And we're going to love God even more. Have a chodesh tov. Have a wonderful. I wanted to make an announcement. First of all, that we continue the Mashiach class on Thursday. First, we have a Chumash class on Tuesday. I'm giving a Chumash class, and I'm continuing the Mashiach class, the JLI Mashiach class on Thursday at 10 o'clock. If you want a book, you can come pick it up at a Chabad, or we'll send it to you. But Thursday, 10 a.m., which is going to be also on Torah Direct. So if you cannot be there, you can watch it on Torah Direct later on. But it's a phenomenal class on the coming of Mashiach. It's a four Thursday course. This Thursday and next 4 Thursdays at 10 a.m. Everybody's welcome to come. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. Now with Zoom, either you have to be admitted now, or there's a code, and it's Chabad, Chabad, lowercase, Chabad, lowercase. I wish you a wonderful, happy, beautiful Sunday. Also, 5 o'clock today, there's an outdoor concert with Label Ben Moshe. Everybody's welcome. Free concert outside the Chabad house. You're all welcome. Social distancing, blah, blah, blah. Everything's going to be there. I wish you a wonderful, happy, great, beautiful week. Chodesh tov. Have a wonderful Chodesh. God bless you.
Rabbi, it's going to be on Zoom.
Oh, it's going to be on Zoom too. Okay, Zoom also. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. I hope you understood the learning today.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Good. Thank
God
you.
bless you all.
Yashikayach.
My pleasure. See you later, 5 p.m. outside the Chabad house. Have a wonderful, beautiful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye.